Hi guys, today I wanted to talk a little bit about being a minimalist and being a creative artistic type person. Now for those of us who like to craft and have a lot of those creative type hobbies, we tend to fall more on kind of the hoarder side of the spectrum as opposed to the minimalist side of the spectrum. And I just wanted to kind of share with you some thoughts and some things that have worked for me as I'm trying to wrestle my love of craft supplies with my love of minimalism. So my first thing is to keep only what you will love and realistically use. I don't know about you, but when I go to the craft stores, I tend to get a little distracted by all the pretty things and it's really easy to come home with those impulse purchases. So if you have things in your stash that are like that and you're like, I don't know that I really like these anymore, it's time to let them go. And the other thing is that our tastes tend to change. So what you thought was really cute 5 years ago may just be kind of meh now. So definitely feel free to let those items go because they're not going to make you happy. You're not going to use them if they're not the things that you really, really love. And so with that, you're definitely going to want to go through your crafting supplies and declutter because you are going to have some of those things that you've had for a long time that you just need to let go and release them back out into the wild. My next tip is to shop your stash. Whether you have a fabric stash or a scrapbook paper stash or a stash of washi, use that first. Once you have kind of gone through and decluttered your crafting supplies, you'll have a much better idea of what you actually have, and then you'll be able to use the things that you do have. So this can make you be a little bit more creative, trying to get things that work together that you already own. And you can also use this to help you prevent crafting orphans. So, and we're talking about a wardrobe. An orphan is a piece that you have that doesn't go with anything else you have, so you never wear it. And you may have some of those crafting supplies as well that just don't really match or go with anything else that you have, and so you never use them. Those are good things that to let go of. And when you're out shopping, be thinking about this and whether or not you're going to create a crafting orphan in your home. The next thing is to set limits on your amount of supplies. Is a big one because otherwise it can get pretty scary looking. I've been watching some YouTube videos of people's crafts room and it kind of makes me a little antsy. Like I want to go and declutter all the stuff. Just because if you have stuff everywhere exploding, you don't know what you have, you can't get to it, you can't use it. So when you're setting limits, you can set limits based on a certain number of items. Let's say I will only have 10 inks at one time. That's it. Or it could be a volume limit. It could be all of my yarn stash is going to fit in this one bin. And that will really help you to stop bringing in more things. It'll encourage you to shop your stash. Or also to let go of some things that you no longer love or are going to use. So for me, I got this really cute little washi tape organizer. Ooh, look at the washi. I love the washi. But anyways, this is going to be my limit on washi tape. I have space for probably one more right here, but this one's pretty full. And after that, no more washi until I either use something up or decide to part with one. So limits are great because it's going to help you keep the clutter under control. It's going to force you to really know the contents of your stash, so you know what you already have, you won't be buying duplicates. And it's also going to help you stop making those impulse purchases because you're going to be like, oh, if I buy another roll of washi tape, I have to get rid of a roll of washi tape. Do I love this washi tape in the store enough to let go of one of my other washi tapes? And make yourself decide right there while you're in the store which one is leaving and hold yourself accountable for that. Another limit that was great for keeping craft supplies under control is a budget. Your husbands and family members will really appreciate this one. If you say, I'm having a crafting budget and I'm not spending any more than this in a certain amount of time, that's really great. That is something else that I use. I have a personal spending budget. A lot of that does go to crafting supplies because I like to craft, and I know that I'm not going to go out and buy a crazy amount of things because I only have so much money a month to spend. The next tip is to use the 1 in, 1 out rule. So once you have your stash to a manageable size, using the 1 in, 1 out rule is going to help you keep it that way. So what this means is when one thing comes in, one thing goes out. So you can either donate, gift, or use up the other item, and then you can get a new one. Again, this is going to help you to really think about your purchases and decide if it's something that you really, really want, if you're going to have to get rid of something that you already have. I use this also for my closet, and that's really helpful. If you have been crafting for a long time, you probably have some craft supplies that you have had since you started crafting. Maybe years, it may be decades that you've had these items. Now, in some other areas of our life, for example, food, we don't usually keep food for decades because it goes bad. It has an expiration date. Fortunately, most of our craft supplies are not going to decompose or break down in such a way that they're unusable for a really, really, really long time. So one thing that you can do to help keep your stash under control is set expiration dates on your supplies. This is especially good for work in progresses, WIPs, yeah, however you say that. And also for those things that you're not quite sure you want to part with, but you feel like you should part with it, but you kind of want to keep it, to set an expiration date. Say, if I haven't used this in 6 months, then it's gone. If I haven't finished this in the next year, it's gone. And that way you can really have a set limit on that item and help you to let go of it and determine whether or not you're really ever going to use it. So, and when you're doing this, go ahead and label the date on the item. You can use a Post-it, or if you can, write it on the actual item, and then you'll know, okay, this one is past its expiration date, so I'm going to let it go because I'm not going to use it. My next tip is for things that you have created. So when you are creative, you make stuff and that makes you happy, but you don't necessarily get joy from keeping every single item that you have. My tip is that you don't have to keep everything that you make. So especially when you're learning something for the first time, you're going to kind of make a lot of things you're not really happy with. So just go ahead, tell yourself that these are practice items and allow yourself permission to let them go. You don't have to throw them away or anything if you don't want to, but you can donate your items, you can gift them to someone who would appreciate them. If you have good stuff, you can open up an Etsy shop and sell it on Etsy so other people can enjoy your artwork, but definitely don't feel like you have to keep everything that you make. I know for myself, I used to keep every single item of clothing I ever made, and I had a really hard time getting rid of them because I'd spent so much time and effort in making them. But I had a closet full of things I didn't wear, things I'd worn once, taken pictures, put it on the blog, and then never looked at again. So I was really able to make a lot of progress in minimizing my wardrobe when I finally gave myself permission to let go of some of those items. So some of them I donated, some of them I repurposed, some of them I sold. So definitely give yourself permission to let some of those items go. And for future crafting, you can possibly create things in mind for gifts. For example, making homemade Christmas gifts, if that's things your friends and family would appreciate. And that way you can still craft, but you won't have to end up with a home full of homemade creations. Okay. And lastly, we're going to talk about people who have multiple hobbies. I'm a person with multiple hobbies. I like to do all of the things. Fortunately, I don't have space or time or money to do all of the things. So if you are like me and you have a lot of hobbies, you're also going to need to keep the total number of hobbies that you have at any one time under control, because if that's not under control, there's no way you're going to have any of your crafting supplies under control. So you can use a lot of these same principles that I've talked about so far and apply them to a hobby in its entirety and not just the individual items that you may have for that hobby. So for example, set an expiration date on your hobby. I haven't done this in 2 years. If I haven't done it in the next year, I'm going to let go of this hobby because I just don't enjoy doing it anymore. You can use the 1 in, 1 out rule. If you start a new hobby, let go of an old hobby. So, for example, I recently decided that I was going to let go of knitting. I haven't really knit anything since being in Florida. I don't have the desire to knit. It's too hot to wear knitwear. The thing that I did enjoy knitting were wool, and I definitely don't need any more wool sweaters right now. And I decided that I was going to let go of knitting. I had Bible journaling now. That was a new hobby that I had, and so I could let go of an old one. Again, you just want to be really realistic about the amount of time and the amount of space and the amount of money that you have to put into these different hobbies, because nobody can do everything. Even if you're independently wealthy, you only have so much time in a day to do your hobbies. So be realistic, and you can even be a little bit brutal about your letting some of your hobbies go. Now, if you are kind of on the edge, you're not quite sure if you're done with a hobby, but you haven't done it in a while, or maybe you kind of feel like you might be done, something you can do instead of getting rid of everything is to just keep your tools, those, especially the things that are more of a high dollar investment, and let go of the supplies. So this is going to let you keep the things that are always going to be useful and letting you let go of a lot of the supplies. And those are the kind of things where especially your tastes might change as you get older and your life changes, and those things that may end up being kind of meh by the time you get back around to the hobby. So for example, if I decided I didn't want to sew anymore, which I still want to sew anymore, this is just a hypothetical, then I would probably keep my sewing machine and my serger, because those are expensive high dollar items, and I would let go of probably most of my fabric stash except maybe 1 or 2 super special pieces. And then when I was ready to pick back up, I could purchase the lower investment items, and I would still have the tools, the higher investment items. So I think that's it for my tips on being a minimalist and a creative. Oops, I just kicked the camera. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this video, and I hope this can help some of you all who may be going through and trying to declutter your crafting stash, because I know that can be really hard. It's one of the more emotional categories, especially for me. So definitely let me know down in the comment section below what hobby things have been easiest for you to let go of and what things are really, really hard. So I will see you guys later.